Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here with Tuomas of Wolfheart to talk about a lot, actually. To talk about the upcoming EP, Skull Soldiers, and to talk about some extra content, if you will. But we'll get into it. How's it going?
It's going well. Been good few days doing some recordings in the wilderness of Finland. So
I feel like that's pretty much everywhere outside of Helsinki. It's the wilderness of Finland.
That is pretty much Finland, yeah. I mean, it's a little bit more wilderness than usually. So
okay, all right.
More, but then again, everywhere you go in Finland, you are in the middle of a forest in a way, at least. So
yeah, that is very true. The first thing I want to ask you about this EP, Skull Soldiers, is this is the first ever EP that Wolfheart releases. So yeah. What sparked that light bulb in you that said, it's time for us to do our first ever EP?
Well, yeah, there hasn't been any opportunities for any kind of like the special releases because we've been releasing actual albums so frequently. It didn't make any sense before. Then this when the Wolves of Karelia came out, it was pretty much the same time when the whole pandemic started fucking everything up in a bigger scale, cutting the lifespan of the album very short. Last album we did about 140 gigs, keeping the release alive in 4 different continents with just touring a lot. Now everything, when the album came out, everything was done. There was no gigs. There was very little promotion to do. Everybody was in a panic mode. There were some countries in Europe that didn't even have record stores open on the release week. So it's as less ideal as it could be. So it kind of like it a little bit felt like we didn't get an album out at all. Didn't have any of the aftermath that you have when you release the album. And also we did have a plan to reschedule the tours for beginning of this year because things seemed that they could get better. And the EP made a lot of sense to just have some kind of like a relevant release out, because at that point, full length is all like we were supposed to tour in this March and April, but then the album would have been 1 year old already. That's a long time in the music business. So it made sense to have some kind of release out to support the touring because the touring cycle was delayed. And also when American Reporter told me the original story of the Skull Soldiers 1 month after the release, I thought I did a very thorough investigation of the historical part, but I never came across with that story. And that was a huge bummer because naturally even the name is an ideal metal song.
Yeah. It's badass.
Yeah, so like missing out that opportunity to make that song and tell the story, that bummed me out quite a lot. And when the label started asking, like, would we be interested of doing something smaller in between while waiting the tours to come back, that was like immediately my idea. Like we need to do a sequel to Wolves of Karelia in form of that small story. So there was multiple reasons.
Why did you decide to go? I think I know, but why did you decide to go with a different sound approach for these two releases? Because while the story kind of continues off of Wolves of Karelia, the sound that you have on these two new tracks is very different from the sound that was on the full-length record. So what drove you to go into this perhaps a little bit of a different soundscape?
Yeah, I didn't want to with the sequel, I didn't want to continue like musically exactly where we left. That would have just made this EP as a weird bonus track, like release. Every release deserves to have its own production, own musical approach. And with the Skull Soldier, with the song itself, I wanted to go as heavy as it feels comfortable for us. It's not the fastest song, but it's probably the most death metal song that we're gonna release anyway. So of course I wanted to push that production angle to the extreme, that it still sounds like us, but as you said, it's clearly a lot harsher and different than we usually have done. Again, when I was writing that song and we were making that EP, I already started planning the next release mainly like the vision and the sound and like what would I want to do with the music. So I wanted to build up the contrast with this EP. People will understand when they hear the next album that there's like building up this certain extreme kind of element in our music, so it will like kind of open up doors for a different style in the future.
Yeah, and I think
which you know something about already. We can just
yeah. For me, it's kind of hard because I have a much clearer vision of the whole roadmap, because obviously I've heard Wolves of Karelia, I've heard the full EP, and I've listened to a couple of demos from the upcoming album, so I have a little bit of a better picture. And I really want to talk to you about those songs. But before we go there, I have a couple more questions for you about the EP.
And once before we go to anywhere, when this can was already open, I just need to tell if there's any label people watching this interview. I have no idea how my email sends few new tracks to Pedro. That's just,
I think
I've been in like a very like a aggressive and constant communication with Google how this is possible, and they put their best guys to solve the case. They can't give me any answers yet, but they said like this will be solved. Like they won't leave any stones turned, but that this happened. And
yeah, it was a glitch in the matrix.
Yeah, like you can't blame me. I'm the victim here. Like we are both just victims of the situation, but the only way to like process this situation that we are in, we need to talk about it. We need to get it out of our system. Yeah, we can't bottle this inside. That's just gonna damage.
This is like therapy, right? We have to kind of talk it out. We have to talk it out. It's the only way to work through it.
Now the label is off my hands, so you can continue. I just have to say
perfect. So before we talk it out and hash out all of the things that are bottled up inside, I got two questions for you about this EP, because Skull Soldiers takes the forefront because it's the title of the EP, is such a heavy track. But Hereditary, that song is magnificent. And if you don't mind me saying, I actually, out of the two, I prefer that one. That song is incredible.
Again, while I was building the contrast for the future music, there was also, I wanted to have a quite as big contrast between the songs as possible. Not in the term that the other one is really like a heavy, and the other one is like a ballad, but like they're both like a still like melodic death metal, but they are as different as they can be, because it's a different approach. When you're making one full-length album, you have 10 to 8 tracks, which I usually prefer the amount of tracks, and then you build the whole thing out of many different elements. EP, when you have 2 new songs, those 2 songs need to present all the like the angles of the whole like creation. So it is a weird thing to write after writing about 20 full lengths, to just 2 songs, and you make those 2 songs to cover the whole like musical vision and creation of the EP. So I wanted to have them completely different. By doing that, I knew already that those songs are going to divide people, because they are so different. The other one has very little melody. The other one has constant melody, and Though I don't mind. I knew that it's going to be like a one or another kind of thing. That was the whole point.
And then you have Laurie on vocals on Aeon of Cold.
Yeah.
The guy can play guitar, he can play bass, and now he's shown us that he can sing. So is this a one-time deal, or are you going to squeeze more juice out of that orange?
No, there's going to be a lot more of Laurie's vocals on the next album. Like the next album musically is going to be a lot like a more preferred platform to have like Laurie's vocals. There's also going to be vocals from Vangelis. Like if you're familiar with his band, Full House Crew, he has a very, very strong and good voice also. So we're gonna, of course, naturally use both voices more on the next album. So it's definitely not we did like this one of a kind thing with the Blacklight single that the Spine Form released, I think like 3 or 4 years ago. And that was just one single between releases. It was not connected to any actual album. It's not in any of the album. But this is like definitely something we're going to continue from now on.
I like this direction, to be honest with you. I think it gives you guys a little bit more clay to mold into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Into Wolfheart music.
Yeah.
So now it's time for us to exercise our demons. So nobody knows how these tracks end up on my inbox, but I was afraid of clicking on them because I thought maybe it's a virus or something like that. But I closed my eyes and I went for it, and I clicked on these two tracks, and I mean they're rough because it's still demos, but wow, like wow. I honestly don't know much more to say, but I was expecting to be a lot more of a skeleton than what it is, and it kind of already shows me where you're at and where you're going to be at by the end of the process of building that record. These two songs, how much of a picture do they paint for what the full length will sound like?
They should paint a really good picture. That's why we, even though they are raw demos, we did very thorough work with the arrangements and amount of tracks and everything. So everybody who hears, my band members, management, label, all of those, especially the other guys in the band, all naturally already heard the songs, but for them to understand also like the vision where I'm heading will help them to bring up their ideas a lot better. And yeah, that should paint a really good picture how the album is going to sound like. We finished 2 other songs yesterday and today that would kind of like give a little bit more complete picture, but those main elements are very clearly heard on those songs. So it's
the first thing that I said to you when I heard the tracks is that you have at least one single out of the 2 that I heard already in there. I feel like that the track is strong enough to be your calling card, if you will, when the time comes.
I don't know which one of the songs.
The one that the hackers labeled as W.
Because I'm not very good of like giving working titles, so I still don't. Is it shorter or the longer one?
The longer.
Okay. I thought it would be the shorter one. It doesn't matter. Like, yeah, I don't know yet. There's gonna be at least 8 tracks on the album. The longer one is already almost 8 minutes. So
yeah, 7 minutes and 25 seconds around that time.
Yeah, so it's not the ideal length when you think like promotion wise, only like the Spotify playlist and making a music video for 7.5 minutes is a lot more work than 4 minutes. Just getting the footage and doing the editing, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm very excited about the direction. I think it's a very good turn. All the like, it doesn't mean like we are now talking about new direction when people are still waiting for the actual next release to come come out. So it like I don't want things to sound like that change would have been needed any earlier. Like Wolves of Karelia sound exactly like it was supposed to, but I am very happy to push the band into a little bit new direction and a little bit more I don't know how
I think the exciting thing about it is if you look at Wolves of Karelia, if you look at Skull Soldiers, and then if you start to imagine, for those that are watching this, if you start imagining what the next record is going to sound like, these 3 offer something. It's still Wolfheart across all 3, but I think you get a different side of Wolfheart, if you will, across all 3. There's no repetition between the 3. The 3 give you a little bit of a piece of the wolf, if you will, a different angle of the wolf, but still the wolf regardless.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah,
and I think that's exciting for the listener because it's not like you're going to get what you already heard before. You have something fresh and new to kind of digest and work your way through it.
Yeah, and I do try to like when I write an album and I have the theme already in my head, I try to make it as scenic as possible for the vision I have in my head. Like the Winter War it's very inspiring for a Finnish person, like at least for me. But it also, when you are, it's such a clear fact-based theme that you have in your head, actual things that happened in actual locations and actual historical time, or part of the time in history. So it doesn't give huge amount of freedom when you are basically writing a soundtrack for kind of like a movie in your head.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go too many places with the music. You want to write album that supports the story also. Now that story has been told, and I go, as far as I know, I only write the lyrics in the studio, so that's going to take a while to be there. It's going to be very nature themed and inspired album. That's one of the reasons why we are in the cabin now. Just like every time when we take a break and I don't stare at the bear rug on the wall, we go outside. It was like -27 yesterday, and just how clear and crispy and beautiful the nature in Finland is in that temperatures. It's ideal place to start building up the new songs, and I think that's going to be the theme, and that is a lot more wider, like a canvas to paint.
Yeah, you're not as restricted to the guidelines of a story. Like, you don't have to be factual. You can just, you can be abstract in the creation of the music.
Yeah, exactly. So now it's nature is a lot more beautiful than war anyway.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah, I hope most of the people I'm connected feels the same way, because that's not a good thing for human beings to actually feel the other way around. But yeah, it's you might agree or not, but it's more beautiful, more like this movie style scenic stuff that is coming for the next album.
Yeah, I had the feeling listening to these two tracks that it definitely has a heavier emphasis on the atmosphere of the music itself. Like, the songs almost feel like scores of soundtracks of movies. They have this large sound that almost like fills in all the empty space with it. So if you compare that with Wolves of Karelia felt a little bit more restricted, even in the sound. It was not robotic, but it was a lot more grinding in terms of how the sound came across. These two tracks feel like you're spreading your wings.
Yeah, well,
that's the impression that I got listening to those two songs, and I love the atmosphere that they hold. To me, that's it's and then I said this to you in a message, is like a return of the winter metal sound, if you will.
Yeah, that is also like, I didn't want to do like Winterborn style of an album, but more in that direction with the next one. Like it's more relying on the melodies and the atmosphere, and but yeah, it's I can't tell more because I've half the album I haven't written yet. So
yeah, I know it's things could change in a couple of days, in a couple of weeks, as you're working through it. I mean, we're talking about something that's being built as we're talking about it. It's kind of hard.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to put words into it. As far as the EP goes, Skull Soldiers, are you going to release any other video or anything else up until March 5th, the date of the actual release?
Yeah, there's going to be 2 videos. There's actually the main video of those 2 is going to be from Ian of Cold, with Laurie actually leading the video, which also what I wanted to have with this EP, since it's always as like special release. I don't consider EP as well, naturally it's not an album, so I don't consider it to be an album, but it's not as clear and strong release to me and than EP than an album. But EP allows to like try out different stuff, and you are not that connected with the theme, because you don't get to build that kind of a theme for an EP anyway.
Yeah, I looked at it when I was listening to it. I felt that this is my opinion in general about EPs. I think EP gives the band a chance to be super creative.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the boundaries that you have in a record. These 2 songs, And you could tell me if you disagree, but these two songs would not fit in any Wolfheart record that you've released up to date.
Not well at least.
It would have to be like a bonus track at the end of the record, something like that. It just, even in Wolves of Karelia, I don't think you could, even though the theme moves into Skull Soldiers, the song, the way it's constructed sound-wise, it's different from how the other tracks come together as a whole. In the album.
And also it gave us the opportunity to make what I was telling before I lost my train of thought.
Look at the bear. Look at the bear.
What?
Look at the bear so you can focus.
That didn't help at all. I'm maybe a little bit more confused now, but I do remember where I was. It's with this, like, the EP is a really good like platform to underline like different aspects of the band, like putting Laurie on the spotlight with Ian of Cold, instead of just like presenting the band. It is the basic lineup with him doing the backing vocals and doing the bass, and also like bringing guest vocalists like on the Skull Soldier, with adding the Ukrainian language, bringing the extra level of aggression. At least when you count the percentage, Vagelis is doing solos in 100% of the new songs on this. Anybody, you can underline certain things. You can bring different sides from the band. You can put different members on the spotlight. So it's that way it worked out really well. Usually I would be more skeptic of doing an EP, but this was a good timing and a good opportunity to have this like a middle release while starting to focus on the next like a step in our career.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this is a nice little bridge in between records during a time of uncertainty that, you know, it allows you to remain creative, allows you to stay focused and not lose yourself in the fog, not the fog of war, but the fog of this pandemic.
Yeah.
So I think this is great. Well, Tuomas, thank you very much for your time today, man. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule. I don't think there's anybody in music busier than you. I mean, you're always working on something. So thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure, as always.
And let's try to find out who hacked you and forward me those tracks. I think we need to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, I think I just, let me check. There's another email from Google. They are now. They have few suspects. They are ready to inflict huge amount of violence and pain to get the answers needed, because this shouldn't happen and can't happen.
I think you need to get that 2-level authentication password thing happening.
That might be the thing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing to do. Well, Tuomas, thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate it. All the best. March 5th, Skull Soldiers comes out. A nice early birthday gift for you and a nice early birthday gift for me. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. Awesome.
Take care, man.
Thank you.